evening, everyone. My name is Tenzin Jokwan, Program Coordinator of Tibet House, and I'm going to be moderating today's occasion. On behalf of Tibet House, Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama would like to welcome all to our monthly lecture. We are very honored to have our guest of honor, Shri Surya Prakash Ji, Chairman of Prasar Bharati, our Chairperson, Matthew Charan Ji, Chief Executive of Health Aid India, and our speaker, Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna Ji, Chief Executive Functionary, Gandhian Forum for Ethical Corporation Governance of TISCO, and Dr. Verma Ji. And she will be speaking on Mahatma Gandhi's vision, Radhakrishna's action, and I would like to request all of them to please come up on the dais. Before we begin the actual lecture, I would like to briefly share with you an overview of Tibet House. Tibet House, Culture Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, was founded in 1965 by His Holiness the Dalai Lama to preserve and disseminate the unique cultural heritage of Tibet and provide a center for Tibetan studies. Tibet House also has a museum of valuable Tibetan artifacts and arts, as well as a library and a conference hall where weekly philosophy classes and lectures were held. Tibet House regularly organizes lectures, conferences, exhibitions, film screenings, and festivals throughout the year. These programs mainly focus on Indian and Tibetan Buddhist history, science, religion, philosophy, art, literature, and culture, where it witnesses to the vital and evolving heritage of Tibetan people. Tibet House also offers different courses on Buddhist philosophy. At present, a 4-year master's course on Nalanda Buddhist philosophy, in which 360 participants are enrolled from 39 countries, and 1-year diploma course on Nalanda Buddhist philosophy, in which 547 participants are enrolled from 41 countries. We also offer a Tibetan language course for every 4 months. Until now, 17 batch has been passed so far. Now, I would like to request Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdula, Director of Tibet House, to share a few words about this topic.
Respected Shri Surya Prakash and respected Shri Jivan Raji and Joint Secretary Shri S. Raji, Speaker Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna Ji. Just for information, I'd like to bring you to notice that the Tibet House Chairperson, Government Body Chairperson, Dr. Dr. Kapila Basanji, she's here. It is a great honor for us to see that our chairperson is right here, and also a very dear friend, Mr. Rajivji, the Raviji, is also here. Thank you so much, all of you. So basically, as the moderator, Ms. Tenzin Jokwan, made an announcement very clearly about the Tibet House programs, here the program. One thing which is very important is when we see the monthly lectures. Monthly lectures are to bring the various expertise into our day-to-day programs, day-to-day interactions with the people, and precisely this one, the Dr. Shobhana Ji. We've been knowing each other for the last 70 years, and first we will introduce each other by Professor Annexe. And to our amazement, I asked Professor Annexe as to how come did you know Dr. Shobhana Ji? And she said that I knew her 30 years ago and we did not meet after that. 30 years gap, and suddenly it just clicked in the mind that there's Dr. Shobhana Ji who can be the best person to speak on Mahatma Gandhi. So at that time we were organizing a program, conference on the views, the thoughts, the practice of Mahatma Gandhi. In this connection, I requested Dr. Shobhana Ji here about the book on her father's, the practice of Mahatma Gandhi's views. It's for the reason that today, wherever in the world, we see that turmoils, crises, and the problems, the disasters, of course, national disasters are there. Meanwhile, many disasters are also there. And for this reason, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when the experts during public addresses of His Holiness, the experts will ask His Holiness one question. What is the reason why, despite the excessive development in the modern education, which otherwise is meant to bring about the harmony, happiness, prosperity of the world, we see that there's a downturn of the happiness, downturn in terms of the morality of the humanity, and so forth. So what's the reason? His Holiness, without hesitation, says that because of the loophole, the shortcomings of the modern education system. And what's the problem with the modern education system? Is that it is designed primarily to nurture, develop your brain, and not really to develop your heart. So what's the problem? So where the heart is missing, the world, the society, the social communities, they have to thrive on the basis of one common hub, which is love and affection. When that is missing, the whole world will go into the fragmentation. So this is why all these problems are happening. And more the education, more the danger there would be if we don't take care of the heart. For that reason, we see that today's program, the Mahatma Gandhi's vision and Radhakrishna's actions. So that is so relevant for the reason that His Holiness emphasizes so much on the need for the inculcating the moral values within us, and the moral values pertaining to the secularism, pertaining to the universal values. So this is what His Holiness is emphasizing on. And the question arises, where can we extract these concepts, the moral values, from where? So Mahatma Gandhi becomes such the epitome of these moral values, particularly who everybody considers unanimously, universally considers as one, whose principles really is something which needs to be inculcated and implemented in the education system. In other words, His Holiness is so keen that the universal ethics must be introduced as a part of modern education curriculum. For that matter, Mahatma Gandhi's views on ahimsa. And just recently, when I was again having a meeting with Dr. Shobhana Ji, we were just going through a so much discussions pertaining to the nuances of the philosophical views of Mahatma Gandhi, of course, which is so pertinent, which is so widely accepted, which is the concept of the ahimsa. Plus, I was inquiring from the Shobhanaji whether or not you can see the explicit contents of compassion in Mahatma Gandhi's view. So, once that is there, then it can be all the information, all the messages and the visions of Mahatma Gandhi can be rightly befitting there in introducing more traditions. This is the basic situation behind.
Sons of India. And this is a very fascinating study that Shobhana has done. It's not just about Radhakrishna, it's also about the post-Gandhian movement in India. We have an entire brand of Gandhians, including Radhakrishna, who got to mount politics and influence public policy without ever aspiring to power. This is the greatness of all these people. They would be there to guide, but never get into the thicket of politics. So the Sarvodaya movement became an important vehicle, and Radhakrishna plunged into it rather early in life. Madam, your book says it was at the age of 24 that he went on to join the movement. Closely with Acharya Vinoba Bhave, Jai Prakash Narayan, and so many other illustrious men and women who in my view, are the real Ratnas of Bharat. The list is so long, I'll just take a few of those names, but it's really huge kind of the people with whom Radhakrishna ji was associated during his life and during his work at Sevashram and Gandhi Peace Foundation and so on. And some of them I have met in my life. That is one of the great things for me when I look at that list. Of course, I was in college and then just into journalism in Bangalore when I met Achut Patwardhan, S.N. Subbarao after the Chembal dacoits were released and the rehabilitation process had begun. I had gone and interviewed him for the Indian Express, I remember. J.B. Kripalani, Kaka Kalelkar. Kaka Kalelkar had come to Bangalore when I was in college. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan had come to Bangalore when I was in college. Mr. L.C. Jain, of course, I had known both there at that time and in Delhi and so on. Mridula Sarabhai. I mean, the list is almost endless and all great people who had just the country's interest in mind in whatever they and Radhakrishna's close association with it. Naitaling was a fascinating concept that sought to provide 360-degree education, where students would not only learn reading, writing, arithmetic, but also a lot about the society they lived in, and they were imparted skills that would stand by them, especially in the rural parts, like dairying, farming, horticulture, weaving, and so on. Gandhiji wanted no distinction. Gandhiji wanted no distinction between those who worked with their hands and those who flaunted fancy degrees. Actually, right now, the government has formulated the new education policy, and the HRD ministry had put it out that they were wanting responses, public responses, till 15th August. It just ended yesterday. But doesn't matter. I would say those of you in this audience, please take a look at that, and that is very, very important, and it is going to determine where we will head as a nation. Because sadly, our education policy has failed to pick up lessons from Naitali. If Gandhiji had thought of that in those days, and skill development, skill impartment to be part of education, and it's so critical to combine the two elements. Somewhere we lost track. As a result, we produce millions of graduates from hundreds of universities with degrees like political science, history, sociology, and so on, who do not have any skill worth in it. There are exceptions to it, but by and large, their skill levels are so poor that they have to be taught all over again by the institution that has them, whichever it is, whether it could be government or media or factory or wherever. So, even today, India is grappling with the issue of finding the real meaning and purpose of education and devising a policy that will fulfill the goals and aspirations of the youth. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, 70 years ago, the government had to grapple with people's needs. Today, it has to provide for people's aspirations. So the work is on this policy. And one of the things about this policy, as I have seen it, is to impart skills at the graduate level. In fact, the Prime Minister mentioned some 2-3 years ago, he said Indians are obsessed with the whole business of getting a degree. So the moment an uncle comes home, he will say, "So, what are you studying? Is he a graduate? Is she a graduate? Do you have a degree? If you don't have a degree, then you're not worth it." This is the general attitude. So therefore, in fact, the Prime Minister said, it's not a problem, give them the degree, but you bring in the skill element into that degree. So I think the coming BA, BSc and so on in the coming year will bridge this gap or bring this critical element into it so that our young people will have skills when they come out of college. Shobhana ji tells us a lot about Sarvodaya Bhudan movement and what these movements sought to achieve. Radhakrishna ji's another major contribution is his work as secretary of the Gandhi Peace Foundation and his determined efforts to take Gandhi to global audiences and universities. There's a lot more to his life. The starting of National National Service Scheme.
Youth for Family.
Huh?
Started as Youth for Family.
Youth for Family. Okay. To train youth for social service. Assisting Jayaprakash Narayan in his efforts to get the dacoits from Chambal Valley to give up the life of crime. Starting open-air jails to rehabilitate reformed dacoits. Starting Citizens for Democracy and building up the movement for democracy and to campaign against corruption. And finally, training hundreds of young Gandhians so that they may take the message of Gandhi to audiences in India and abroad. Radhakrishna ji participated in Quit India movement and was jailed for 2 months. His namesake, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, happened to be the Vice Chancellor BHU.
He was the guardian.
He was the guardian and After 2 months, he somehow managed to pull him out of jail. So, but it is that spirit, that we all must respect and value. Then also his commendable work in refugee rehabilitation after partition and so on. I was reading about that in your book, which is also very important. Then he was an interlocutor on the Kashmir issue, which of course is very current right now after 5th August 2019, when he and Narayan Desai were dispatched by Jayaprakash Narayan to go and talk to Sheikh Abdullah. So your book says that their conversation went on for 6 hours, after which, that was in Kodaikanal, where Sheikh Abdullah had been arrested and placed under, it was a makeshift jail for him. Anyway, so there was this marathon session in Kodaikanal, after which he came and gave a report to Morarji Desai, who was the Deputy Prime Minister, and after which those negotiations led to the release of Mr. Abdullah in 1966. Also joining Jayaprakash Narayan in his peace initiatives in Pakistan and within the country in Nagaland. For over 20 years, he has devoted himself to the work of Gandhi Peace Foundation, had a big role to play in the Gandhi Centenary celebrations. Then the 1970s saw Radhakrishna ji greater involvement in national political developments. Much trouble was brewing across the country because of widespread drought, famine, corruption, public distress over inflation, poverty, unemployment. This led to mass movements led by students. They wanted resignation of legislators and governments in Gujarat, Bihar, and so on. In Bihar, the agitation turned violent. And Radhakrishna ji wanted democracy in the true sense, that is, deeper connect between elected representatives and the people. He was troubled by the deterioration in democratic values and said corruption of the electoral machinery and intimidation of presiding officers and so on. This is what he said in his writings at that time. And then, of course, all this in the early 70s led finally to the massive student protest in Patna, which became very violent, and then JP's call for a total revolution. And at that time, Radhakrishnan ji says it's an open confrontation between the politicians who want to rule and fool the people for all times, and the people who want to get back their power delegated to politicians. Radhakrishnan ji toured the southern states with JP and prepared the people by rousing their conscience. Then, of course, June 25, 1975, Indira Gandhi imposed the emergency, and then JP was arrested from Gandhi Peace Foundation. Radhakrishna ji went underground for some months, and then, of course, surrendered and went to jail sometime in August or something of that year, a few months later. But unfortunately, that government harassed his family. Your book says that they took away a lot of things from the house and so on and so forth, and they had a lot of problems. But anyway, when March 1977, the people gave their verdict, and that brought the end of the emergency. And of course, Jayaprakash Narayan, Radhakrishna ji, and all of those with them had played a very great role in restoring democracy, putting it back on the rails. And then, of course, the Janata government brought in the 44th Amendment, and everything was restored in regard to the Constitution and so on. Then they broke up and all that. But I will say that they did the job for which they had been elected, giving us back the Constitution we had prior to 75. Indira Gandhi called elections, the rest is history. So Radhakrishna ji was one of the heroes of the second freedom movement. He went to jail and put up with a lot of harassment so that we could win back our democracy. I congratulate Shobhana ji for chronicling the life and times of Radhakrishna ji, her father, and she has added a very important chapter to the history of modern India. all of you for being here this evening. I think this is a very important event that she has done this book, and this will add a lot of value to our understanding of our country's modern Indian politics. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to hand over the mic over to our chairperson, Sri Matthew Charan, to proceed with the lecture. For the lecture, we have 35 minutes for the speaker and 20 minutes question and answer session.
I'm privileged that Dr. Shobhana has written this book in the 150th year of Mahatma Gandhi. And this book, I'm more Dr. Radhakrishna's friend and still Shobhana's friend, but of course, I used to stay next to Radhakrishna's house in Nagpur. And we have worked in certain movements where I would like to say Dr. Radhakrishna had a intense feeling for what was going on onto the ground. So of course the arena for action at those years was tribal India in Madhya Pradesh and in Maharashtra. And he was constantly on the move, and he was supporting movements and women's movements, and he was a firm believer in gender equality. And we worked together, and we have supported a lot of groups in those areas. And today these groups are big players in the NGO sector, and they mentioned the dacoit movement and Subba Rao and P.V. Rajgopal. They were involved in working with Radhakrishna to get the dacoits to surrender in Madhya Pradesh. And it is timely that Dr. Shobhana has penned this book, and it recounts the whole history, and as Surya Prakash said, it fills a gap in the whole history of the Indian democratic movements. And Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna is on a mission to reintroduce the messages of Mahatma Gandhi to inspire people in India and abroad. Mahatma Gandhi's thoughts and principles can guide the people as it has the strength to inspire and bring about the change to work for Satyagraha. And Shobhana writes in a book, of course, she talks of a culture which is based on fewer material wants, fewer material goods, but more non-material wants and more non-material opportunities. And actually, this is the way Dr. Radhakrishna lived, and that is the way Dr. Shobhana also lives. So it is a value system which we think is needed in today's materialistic world. And a little bit about His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because I'm glad that Tibet House is organizing it. Of course, I have stayed at the feet of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you were the organizers in Dharamshala, and did meditation for 7 days with His Holiness. And then, of course, I work with older people. So His Holiness said, "What are you doing for our people?" So actually, we are now building an old age home in Leh, and His Holiness came to Leh and laid the foundation stone for the home. So hopefully, we'll be doing more for the Tibetan people. And so that is a bit of the work that I do. And Shobhana is also the president of the Radhakrishna Foundation and the chief executive of Disha NGO. And so, without much ado, I'll hand it over to Shobhana to talk about the book, because she will do much more justice than me on the book. Shobhana will speak for 35 minutes. After that, the floor will be open for questions, so you can ask questions.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge my grateful thanks to Tibet House, to Venerable Keshila, who very kindly extended invitation to me to talk about the book the day, I think about 2 months ago, when I had gone to present the book to him. And because I basically wanted His Holiness's blessings for my book. And it so happened that His Holiness came to Delhi on 15th of July, and I was able to get his blessings. So, firstly, I would like to thank you very much for this very, very kind gesture. And I pray that I always receive your blessings. And thank you. And I would like to thank Surya Prakash ji. I have not learnt Kannada yet. Though in my childhood I was able to speak in Kannada, I tried my best, but whenever I see him, I forget it. I just can't get it out. I'm very sorry. And Matthew ji, of course, I have seen him from a very, very long time, and he's so kind. And he's a friend of our family, basically, and my father's friend, a younger friend. My father had many, many young friends, so he was one of those persons who was always surrounded by youth. And so, thank you, Matthew ji. And ma'am, of course, Kapila ji, I went and requested her. She said, "Who is the speaker?" I said, "I'm the speaker for the day." So she said, "Okay, I have 2-3 programs, but I'll come today." So she was very kind. On my invitation, she was here. So I really, really thank her, because she's been my mentor in IGNC also. And for many, many years, she's been so very kind and patient with me. And I would like to thank Verma ji, who has been my pillar of strength in this 150th program, birth anniversary of Gandhiji. I met him because I had gone to the Postal Academy to give lectures, and I met Mr. Basoiji, who was the DG there, and he introduced me to Barmaji. And Barmaji since then has been really, really my pillar of strength. And thank you, Barmaji, for being here. And because of him, I'm able to do so much in this 150th birth anniversary of Gandhi, and I'm very grateful for your support. And to all the people here who have come here, I extend a very, very grateful thanks for being here. And I would like to be reminded of the time, because sometimes I tend to go into a story, because I did a Gandhi Katha recently on the 7th of August in Uparashtrapati Nivas. And yes, I had I prepared, because I had to only speak for 30 minutes, and there was this Gandhi Katha dhun and the bhajans also. But I managed the time. But today, if I have a little problem, please stop me. So I would like to start my whatever I want to talk today from 1931. That is the time when Gandhiji had gone for the Round Table Conference to London. And he spent about 6 weeks there, and made friends with the British. Basically, the conference got him nothing, but friendship is what he got from the British. And they organized, the people of East End in London organized the farewell reception for him on the last day, on December 5th, 1931. So, like every other day in the ashram, because I was born in Sevagram ashram, and right now what I'm doing is a very wonderful thing. I have gone back to my ashram routine. So now I'm totally into that ashram routine, and it is a very wonderful routine. So anyway, after the morning prayers, Sarvadharma Prarthana of Gandhiji, then he went for a walk. He thanked everybody personally for coming to meet him, and he thanked the security personnel, and all that happened, and the party left for Europe, because he wanted to meet Romeo in Switzerland, in Villeneuve. So Gandhiji left for his trip to Europe, but he was very aware of what was happening in India. Already the British government had tightened the noose and arrested the prominent leaders of the Congress. Just 5 days before his arrival, a lot of prominent people, leaders had been arrested. So Gandhiji cut short his visit to Europe and came back. Of course, in between, he stopped in Rome. He met Mussolini. He wanted to meet the Pope, but that never happened because of obvious reasons. But he was able to visit his dream project, which is Madame Montessori School, because he was always very much interested in education. So he happened to go to Rome, Milan, and left from Brindisi for India. So then, once, just 5 days before he came, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was the president of the Congress at that time, International Congress, he just decentralized the position of the Congress president, and he told everybody that everybody now should become a leader and start thinking of how they're going to get into the civil disobedience movement. So to the people of Kheda, farmers who were harassed by the excessive taxes that were being taken, he said, now go ahead and do your satyagraha. And to everybody, they said, you please hand over your succession plan to people so that in your absence they'll be able to take up the work. And Gandhiji is returning, so we must be prepared. And after that, he was arrested. So Gandhiji landed in Bombay, and there was this massive reception for him. Everybody showered flower petals, and then he was taken in a big procession. But Gandhiji immediately addressed a very big public meeting, and he gave the reason why he was opposing the separate electorates for the untouchables. At that time, they were called like that. And he justified that. In the evening also, in the meeting of the welfare of the India League, Gandhiji severely criticized the British government for the new ordinances that they had brought in of arresting people, and especially people in the western frontier. And that too with the red shirts, or the Khudai Khidmatkars. They used to wear the red shirt, and they were Gandhiji's disciples and the most non-violent people. Of course, they are known for violence, but due to Basha Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, they had turned non-violent, and a lot of atrocities were committed on those people. And Gandhiji was arrested on 4 January 30, 1932, exactly 60 days after Gandhiji was the guest of the King Emperor and the Queen at the Buckingham Palace. Now he was the guest of His Majesty's government in Yeravada jail. So that's how the transition happened. But Patel and Mahadev Desai were also in the jail, so 3 of them had a very good time in the jail, basically. And a lot of time to reflect and think, because Gandhiji was thinking about constructive programs, Rachanatmak Karikram. And he wanted to settle down in a village and then start working with people for a non-violent, face-to-face society. And he had no time in all these years. But after that, of course, he undertook a fast during that time for the same separate electorates. And they had Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhiji signed the Pune Pact, and the government also agreed for the time being. And he came out. And then, since in 1930, when he had embarked on the Salt March, he had decided never to go back to the Sabarmati ashram till Swaraj is achieved. So Gandhiji had really no place to go to. So Jamnalal Bajaj offered him a orange orchard in Segaon village. That's about where you stayed with my father, about 85 kilometers from there. And Gandhiji went with Kasturba to stay there in 1936, established the Sevagram Ashram. Now, immediately, the Sevagram Ashram routine started, which is the ashram routine, getting up at 4 o'clock, and the Sarvadharma Prarthana, an entire thing that we experienced in the ashram. And then he started the constructive programs. At that time, he started with 14 constructive programs, and invited youth of the country to come and participate in the constructive programs. And that's when Radhakrishna ji, who was a student in BHU, pursuing his master's in industrial chemistry. At that time, of course, Radhakrishna ji, when he was very young, he was inspired by his uncle, maternal uncle, Siddhamanhalli Krishna Sharma, who was a staunch Gandhian and who was a writer and a journalist. And he had spent 9 months in Sevagram Ashram with Gandhiji in 1939. So that Paranakuti, have you read it? Vardha Yatre. Then it was translated by my mama, H.Y. Sharda Prasadji's Vardha Yatre, but beautiful description. So Radhakrishna made up his mind, and of course, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan wanted him to pursue his studies, so he literally took him there to BHU. And of course, he was a very popular person because he was a multilinguist. And he had perfect command over Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Bengali, Gujarati, all the languages. He participated in all the dramatic clubs. And he was a very popular student. And then at that time, he participated in the Quit India movement and was arrested. In fact, he was handcuffed and taken to Bangalore and left home. But then, of course, all these gurus and his mentors intervened and he came back to study. But after that, instead of going home where his parents were waiting and where he had a big family of 7 siblings, from Madras Railway Station, Central Railway Station, he took the train going to Sevagram Ashram. Just took out the Bhagavad Gita. In the moment of crisis, he wanted an answer, and the answer was here in this shloka. Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat sunushthitat swadharme nidhanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. Better is one's own law though imperfectly carved out than the law of another carried out perfectly. Better is death in the fulfillment of one's own law, for to follow another's law is perilous. So his mind was made up to go to his guru, Gandhiji, and he considered himself as the student of Gandhi. So now the student of Gandhi with a degree in industrial chemistry, and there were a lot of offer from big industrial houses for him to join, because at that time that was a very much in demand degree. So Radhakrishna took the train, went to Sevagram. And in Sevagram already Gandhiji had left Sevagram. He was there from 1936 up to 1944. In between, of course, the draft resolution for Quit India movement was drafted in the Adi Nivas in Sevagram Ashram. From there, he had gone on the 5th of August 1942 to Bombay and gave his famous speech at the Gavalia Tank Maidan. Then he was arrested and taken to Aga Khan Palace. From there, when he came back in 1944, he straight away came to Sevagram and continued with his Rachnatmak Karikram. Constructive programs, added 4 more. So since it is not about the constructive programs, I will not be going into details of that. But one of the things that he had started earlier was Nai Talim school, or he called it basic education. He had experimented with that in the Tolstoy farm itself. And then he really wanted to put it into test in the rural scenario. So they lived in poverty and became one with the villagers. And this whole school started in Segaon village. And when Radhakrishna went, it was the main people there were Asha Devi Aryanayakam and ERW Aryanayakam, the educationist couple who were in Shantiniketan before Gurudev Shantiniketan. So a lot of influence of Shantiniketan came to Sevagram also, because a lot of people came. And they were running the Nai Talim school along with Shanta Narurkarji, who was again a disciple of Gandhiji, and she had done a lot of work on adult education and involving the whole community in children's education. So that's a very, very important thing, to involve the community in the education of the children. And this is basic education, skill-oriented education, where one lives in harmony with the nature, studies in the mother tongue, and also is able to work with their own hands. So they all of us, I am a product of Nai Talim, all of us had to work in the fields, grow our own vegetables, cook our own food, do everything ourselves, and then learn the lessons of life and the skills that are required to carry on the life. So here Radhakrishna went as a very young person of 23, and immediately he was made as the principal of Naitali. And of course, he being he had a very booming voice. So he could sing so well, and he was always the one who used to go back home and teach Gita to his siblings. So all of them remember Annaya used to teach Bhagavad Gita. So it was such a beautiful thing. And then, of course, his father thought that maybe he'll become a sannyasi. So they immediately got him married to my mother, who is not here today. She wanted to come, but since IIC becomes very cold, and then she has to go to the bathroom. So maybe they should reduce they should increase the temperature. So I couldn't bring my mother. I'm very sorry. And yes, then of course, immediately the partition had happened. So there was a need for education and rehabilitation of the refugees. So Radhakrishna was sent as the education in charge from the government of India to look after the refugees who had come from Bahawalpur. This was Multan. And he went to Rajpura in Punjab. And that's where he stayed for 5 years. And this 24-year-old man, with no experience in such a huge kind of a rehabilitation program, and a 17-year-old mother of mine who had faced Razakars already, because in Hyderabad, Razakars were really very, very uh, aggressive, and they were creating a lot of problems for the Hindu population. So my mother was very scared because everybody looked like a Muslim there with the beard. She had never been to the north. So in that scenario, you can imagine a big, huge camp, and these two were there as the main people who were responsible for their rehabilitation. It was a very battered, bruised, and very sad people who had come after the partition. But this young man was handling crores of money. He used to bring it from New Delhi. Rajkumari Amrit Kaur was the education minister, and she had trusted Radhakrishna completely. So one of the only concerns Radhakrishna ji had was bringing that money in the suitcase carefully and not getting robbed. Otherwise, he was such a meticulous person, accounts, and he was very. There was Amma remembers that so many tents were only for accounts. So he was a very careful administrator. He proved to be a very good manager and an administrator, and his qualities were appreciated. He was offered a ministerial post in the government, which he refused. And after 5 years, as the government wound up the Rajpura experiment where rehabilitation work was over, then he, of course, refused the position in the government and went back to Sevagram. Now, Sevagram already had gained a lot of interest, national interest, and people. It had expanded all over India. Dr. Zakir Hussain was personally interested in that, and it became a very huge all India, pan India level program. So Radhakrishna again became the secretary of the Hindustani Talimi Sangh. Now that was to look after the entire education of Nai Talim education in every place, and also teachers training program also started. So Sevagram became the hub of activity with 400 community members, teachers from all over the place. As a result, we have family in all the states. I was there. I was born there when they came back, and I grew up amongst 400 people. So for me, like home is with 400 people. So it is such a wonderful life that I have led with my brother Chandrahas in Sevagram Ashram. Of course, Vinoba Bhaveji had started the Bhudan Yatra. 1952 in Andhra Pradesh, in what is that village? Did you remember Pochampalli? Pochampalli. Pochampalli, the first land was given to the landless, to Vinoba Bhaveji, and the Bhudan Yatra had started, whereas he was asking for donation of land for landless people, because after the independence they needed to be self-sufficient. And that is the time Radhakrishna also got involved in the Bhudan Yatra, and as a lot of people used to come to Sevagram, all the leaders used to come, and there were so many conferences. As a child, I remember serving salt on water to 500 people without raising my head. My mother told me last night to tell this, so this is what my ma wanted to tell everybody. So I naturally grew up in that environment, and once that Sevagram became such a throbbing center of activity, till Vinoba Bhaveji said, now all the Gandhian organization will be merged in one umbrella organization, and that will be called Sarva Seva Sangh. And so he said, okay, Radhakrishna, the able manager, administrator, and the person who is very much different than the other Gandhians, should take over the administration of Sarva Seva Sangh. So he was packed off to Varanasi. Now, for us children, we are born in the village. We studied in the village school, so we were totally gawars when Dehatis. Even now, I am very much of a Dehati person. So then we were packed off. For us, it was a big city. So very interesting. But I got an opportunity to study in J. Krishnamurti Foundation. It's called Foundation for New Education. That was in Banaras, Rajghat, Banaras. That was J. Krishnamurtiji's school, and Krishnaji used to come and talk there. So I had this opportunity of listening to him also. I find myself very fortunate about it. And then we were living in a complex called Sarvodaya complex. It was called Sadhana Kendra. Again, a big, huge community living, Sarvajanic life, and it was very beautiful because by then so much Bhudan had been acquired, so that Gram Swaraj work had to be started. So Father Radhakrishna ji, so he was responsible for making sure that everybody had the resources, everybody was able to do everything. So he used to travel for 25 days. So he spent the maximum time in the trains. We got very little of Radhakrishna ji for ourselves. Our mother is the one who taught us whatever we know. And this is, and also in the book I have written whatever Amma has told me, because she was witness. She's been his partner for 50 years in this public life. So she recalled everything. And by 1962, Gaya had done a Purna Zila Dan. So Jayaprakash Narayanji, the socialist leader who really did not agree with Gandhiji on many things, at that time he declared in the Bodh Gaya Sarvodaya conference that he was giving his Jivan Dan for Gram Swaraj. And that changed the scenario. Suddenly, Sarvodaya movement had two leaders. On one side, Jayaprakash Narayan, and on the other side, Acharya Vinoba Bhaveji. And it was such a wonderful opportunity to work with these two people. And of course, Jayaprakash Narayanji established the Gandhian Institute of Studies in Varanasi. And Radhakrishnaji became very, very much involved in that. Through that, all these peace missions that Surya Prakashji had talked about were taking place. And while we were growing up, we were watching our father being very, very busy, but at that time we didn't realize what was happening. And it's only now when I wrote the book that I really understood that what a wonderful contribution he was making to the constructive activities and Gandhiji's vision, because Gandhiji actually wanted the construction workers to guide the people in the politics with right policies. So this is what was happening, give and take between the government organizations and the Gandhian organizations, which was a very nice time. And in 1969, that was the Gandhi centenary here. Now, my father was very active in the Gandhi centenary. That's why I thought, now I have the chance in the 150th year, I must do whatever I can. That time I couldn't do much. I was quite a novice and just come out of school, and I was just watching with wonder, because again, coming to Delhi was such a big change, and we were thrust in the midst of the Gandhi centenary year, and Gandhi Darshan was being built at that time. So then it was amazing for us, and new life, of course, for me and my brother. New city and all that, we were adjusting to that. But my father, of course, was very busy with the Gandhi centenary, and the chief guest was Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Basha Khan. So when Basha Khan came, he was very much heartbroken. He said, "You have moved away. India has moved away from Gandhi's path. It is so sad to see that you have pursued a different model of development. It's not the Gandhian path." And then when Indira Gandhi had arranged for him to stay in the Luton zone, he said, "नहीं, मैं तो राधा कृष्ण के घर में जाऊंगा." Suddenly, Badsha Khan comes to stay with us. Now we didn't have the bed, so a big, huge bed, 7 feet long bed had to be made firstly. Now we are vegetarians. Badsha Khan, how to feed him? Very big problem for my mother because she had to manage the kitchen. And then Badsha Khan made it very easy. He said, "No, no, मैं vegetarian ही खाऊंगा." So even if the non-vegetarian food used to come from Rudila Ben's place, because Shahnawaz Khanji was there with Rudila Ben, they used to bring the tiffin carrier. He refused to eat. Only condition was that every chapati had to be very hot. I mean, every morsel had to be hot. So every time he would eat one morsel, the other chapati had to be ready. So anyway, it was such a pleasure. Basha Khan stayed with us. He went on a fast also because there was so much happening in Gujarat. Violence. So he took a fast. He went all around India to see the constructive activities. Father, of course, arranged it. And by the time Badsha Khan left, and suddenly it was news of horrible genocide in East Pakistan. It was the most terrible time. Gandhi Peace Foundation, Radhakrishna and Jayaprakash ji went on a world tour to arouse world sympathy towards the human rights violation that was happening in East Bengal, and as a result, the international attention was focused on it, and of course, refugees again. Bangladesh, East Bengal refugees were pouring into West Bengal in Calcutta. So Radhakrishna immediately, with his experience of Rajpura, of relief and rehabilitation, he organized the relief and rehabilitation for the refugees in Calcutta. And it was a big thing. He roped in all the organization, and now here is the organizational capability of this man. Though he had left the Sarvodaya Sarva Seva Sangh, but again he was a mentor for everybody. That quality he had, that he could involve everybody in the entire program. He was a very wonderful person with a very good sense of humor, organizational capacity, very quick thinking, and very different than all other Gandhians who were there, because he was a very practical Gandhian. And always he wanted to give a chance to people to develop their own capacity. So here is a man who could make an ordinary person into a leader at all times. That was what his very special quality was. And then, of course, after the Bangladesh war, the Chambal dacoit surrender was happening. And they had, Madhu Singh and Mohar Singh had sent feelers to Jayaprakash ji that they wanted to surrender, just like earlier they had surrendered to Vinoba Bhave ji. This was Daku, the main Daku, forget the name. Okay. Man Singh. Daku Man Singh. Remember all the films which were the result of all the dacoit surrender. So Jayaprakash Narayan ji, of course, was doing it, but from behind the scenes, it was Radhakrishna who was making everything possible. And in Bhind, Murena, my mother also had gone, and my father was away at that time in the US, but he managed everything very perfectly for them to take all this program very well. And then, of course, Surya Prakash ji was talking about the open jail for the dacoits, and that was my father's idea. And Subbarao ji and Rajgopalan ji were put there to run the open jail, and of course, because for all this, a lot of resources and things are needed. So all that, Radhakrishna ji, from behind the scene, he was a man who would never come in the forefront. He would remain always in the back. side and make others do the things. So here was he, and in 73, when there was a lot of unemployment, student unrest, price rise, and all kinds of things going on, and a lot of sycophancy in the Congress. By then, the famous India is Indira and all that, Mr. Barua had already said all those things. So moral degradation was taking place. Students were now getting ready for a very violent agitation. Then again, they looked at Jayaprakash Narayanji, who led Sampurna Kranti. And of course, Radhakrishna was there all the time. And by 75, the base had shifted to New Delhi. So Jayaprakash Narayanji was staying with us in the Gandhi Peace Foundation. And I don't know how many of you, many young people are there, but you may have listened to his speech of 25th June 1975 in the Ramlila Maidan. And after that, he came home. Amma had cooked food, etc. And my brother Chandrahas was sleeping outside. So he writes about this. I would just read up a little bit, though I think my time is up. Is it up? So he has written in the book an article titled "The Dark Clouds Hover on the Horizon." This is where Father Radhakrishna came in the forefront as JP's next in command for the movement christened as Sampurna Kranti. Much happened. Mrs. Gandhi saw her downfall and imposed emergency just to keep her in power. That fateful night, as father slept inside, I was in deep slumber, and I was 19 years old going to college, outside in the veranda of the house at Gandhi Peace Foundation in New Delhi, with JP in deep peaceful sleep in the nearby room. And enter Bahadur, the all-faithful Nepali guard, monitoring both the huge gates. Bhaiya, police gate per aa gayi hai, aap aa jao. He blurted out in fearful stupor. I, semi-dazed in sleep at 2 a.m., staggered to the locked gate to see a posse of police vans and some dozens cops. What is it? I could barely speak out of fear. I could, though, read that he was Inspector Bharadwaj of Delhi Police. Open the gate, we have orders to arrest JP. I hesitated, not knowing how to react. Inspector just took out the pistol from the sling and held it at my chest. That was it. I hurried in to wake up father, quickly briefed father about the situation, and we both came out to accompany the cops to JP's room. All he said, "Acha, aa gaye." Jayaprakash Narayanji, middle of the night, so calm and quiet, "Acha, aa gaye." Very cool and constrained, and got ready to leave for his unknown destination, which we finally knew as the Postgraduate Institute Hospital at Chandigarh, via Parliament Police Station. A battery of black limousines left the night with the grand old man. Then started father's 2 years of journey. Get on the PABX and call Morarji Bhai, Chandrasekhar, George Fernandez, Ramnaji and others and inform them I am getting ready to go underground as directed by JP. His set time was 4 a.m. By 6 a.m. all were arrested and lodged in Tihar jail, New Delhi. Father had packed his bag and left the premises to an unknown destination. Me and the night's affairs looming large. To cut a short story, many things happened. I was unaware where father was or his well-being, except for briefly seeing him at Mumbai when he met his parents proceeding to the USA. Throughout, he was guiding the remaining cadre as to how to take the movement ahead. Now, he was spearheading the Sampurna Kranti movement, which was in a satyagraha mode at that time, and not let down the Lok Nayak. How do you manage to eat or go to college? You must be having a refrigerator, gas, asked the inspector from Daryaganj to my brother one fine morning. I simply told the truth about my having a Java motorbike and all that he needed to know without me understanding the game plan. That was it. Next morning, a van arrived and took everything away, from a bike to all the utensils, all the fridge, etc., giving us a stern warning to tell them where our father was. Though neither deterred me nor the father for a few months, I had friends who took care of my needs. With all tall political leaders, only father from the Gandhian fraternity who stood by JP, while Vinoba Bhave was clarifying the clamping emergency as Anushasan Parva. The movement had lost the momentum but not the fire in the hearts of the people. So then again he talks about father came home to JP. So now my time is up, so you please read it in the book because it's all there. But Chandrahas has written a very moving description of what all went. I had to leave Delhi because I was sent away to Bombay for safety reasons. So when my father was in jail, I only had one occasion to meet him, and of course all that happened. But when the Janata Party came to power, the entire the selection of the prime minister was made in our living room, and it was father who was very clear that Morarji Bhai should become the chairman, the prime minister. So my father was that time being called as the kingmaker. Again, there was an offer to join the government, which father stayed away from that, and of course. He was later released on parole because he was the mediator between government and Jayaprakash Narayanji. So all this happened, and later on, Janata Party also fell, and Indira Gandhi came back. Now the vendetta started all over again on GP3. She established Justice Kudal Commission and to inquire because they wanted to prove that Radhakrishna was a foreign agent. So three organizations, Gandhi Peace Foundation, Gandhi Nidhi, and Sarva Seva Sangh were under scrutiny for 7 years. Justice Kudal and everybody troubled father so much, but they couldn't find anything. So after 7 years, it was just a waste of time. But father, of course, went ahead with the peace missions, with his taking Gandhi globally, international seminars, and a lot of scholars, including Schumacher, had visited GPF to give talks, and as you said, he had established many things, made many programs. So all those things were going on, and then there was a super cyclone in 1979, a very huge cyclone that had hit the coastal Andhra Pradesh, and father, with his experience of refugee rehabilitation, rushed to the Guntur district area, and he was in fact one of the first persons who picked up dead bodies along with Prabhakarji. Did you meet Prabhakarji ever? The very stalwart Gandhian from the Andhra Pradesh, at least. So then, of course, later on, the government stepped in for cyclone rehabilitation. Guntur district even now has a place called Radhakrishnapuram, and there is a statue of Naina, my father, but I have not seen it. So nobody's now. I would like to ask somebody for a photo. In any case, that was the beginning of another chapter in Radhakrishna's life, because now he was growing older. He knew that a new cadre of youth workers had to be, new Gandhians had to be brought in. So he established Gandhi Peace Center, and through that he trained new Gandhians for rural reconstruction and moved the base to Sevagram Ashram. So Sevagram Ashram became the hub of activity, and that's where Nagpur also happened. And just before, in 1993, Panchayati Raj Act was announced, and Radhakrishna ji was telling everybody to get involved in that Panchayati Raj program. And the 125th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi was coming in 1994. Radhakrishna ji wanted 1,000 youth to become part of the Vikas Vahini, to spread around in entire India to take up the constructive activities. That was his dream. With that dream, in 1994, on 19th June, he left us, and but before that, he had made 89 organizations, already established organizations, settled them. He had made thousands of young Gandhians, all of whom are continuing his work and vision and mission. So Gandhiji's vision continues, Radhakrishna's action is there for always. Today also I got a very beautiful letter from someone saying that we are continuing all the program that Radhakrishna ji had taught us about. So Gandhiji's vision of Gram Swaraj is still going strong. A lot of people are doing it, thanks to Radhakrishna ji, who came as a guiding star to guide them in this program. So that is about what is I have captured in the book, and I have not done much justice because this, of course, has become a big book. My father was a big man, so still I think there are volumes to be written. I would like people, the younger people, to do research and understand how he involved people, inspired people to work for the nation, because that is what is required. Gandhi is not only his philosophy, Gandhi is action. So unless Gandhiji's action is brought into the public sphere, it is really done. There is no point in celebrating the 150th birth anniversary just by giving talks. So we have to get involved, understand Gandhi's vision, and put it into practice, because for Gandhi, an ounce of practice was worth more than tons of preaching. So that is something which I would like all of you to have that thought and understand that every moment to put Gandhiji's action into practice is what will matter, what will make a difference. So I thank everybody very much for giving me this opportunity to introduce my book. And once again, I express my grateful thanks to you.
Thank you, Shobhana ji, for this amazing history of the Radhakrishna ji. And I would, of course, advise many of you, I think, to buy the book and see if it can be, you can read more about what happened in those periods. And not only just youngsters, even older people who are there should read it. So actually now I would open the floor, and if any of you have questions to Shobhana ji on various facets of it, some of you may have read the book, but those who haven't read also, she has given a good account of the whole history from 1931 till the emergency and the new Janata Party which started to rule. And of course, Radhakrishna ji was so much a backstage player. And of course, she mentioned also that it was always felt that Morarji Desai was basically made Prime Minister because of Radhakrishna ji. So even the Indian Express had reported that in their newspapers that Morarji is going to be the Prime Minister because of the backing he received from Radhakrishna ji. So over to you. If any of you have questions, please. Yeah, use the mic here.
My name is Shobhana Radhakrishna. My concept of leadership, the way the modern management understands it, and modern management understands it, and the people around the globe, that's how they define it. Tell us something more about that. How or what kind of leadership Radhakrishna learned, and it came from not from position but from an understanding of the situation and the capability within, which blossomed in it. Now, tell us more about that.
Would you like to say something?
No, you see.
It's about Radhakrishnaji's leadership, basically, or Gandhiji's leadership.
Leadership in general now.
Okay. So basically,
The experiences.
Yeah.
And what should we learn today?
yes, because I will start with Gandhiji, who had said earlier leadership meant muscles, but now it means getting along with people. Getting along with people, that's a very simple prerequisite of leadership, because you must always respect the other person as an individual. And find Radhakrishna had this very unique quality of seeing the best in an individual, giving them the opportunity to bring out their aspirations and dreams, and making it possible that they are actually able to do it without imposing his own ideas. So that was something very unique, and which I think he, as a student of Gandhi, must have picked up from Gandhiji's ideas only. Other thing was that he was a very meticulously organized person. Unless you are able to organize your time, whatever is available, and you are able to finish the job within that time by putting all the focus in it. In fact, my mother used to ask him how come he goes to so many places, takes on so many people, but he's never tense. So the main thing is to keep the balance of mind, to have absolute control and not let the emotions rule your decisions. And that's why he had calmness and a lot of spirituality which came to him was inborn because, he was born in Vadhal Iyengar family with a very long history of people who have been involved in religion and of Vishishtadvaita of Ramanujacharya's anuyayis. And it was something which came to him naturally. And of course, Swami Ranganathananda of the Ramakrishna Mission, who was his neighbor also in Mysore, influenced him a lot because he used to play in his laps. So all those things cultivated. Radhakrishna was a deeply spiritual person also, like his mentor Gandhiji, and he did it selflessly. Basically, a leader has to act absolutely selflessly without any motive, and he never craved for a position, no power. He didn't have any position, power, or any money. In fact, he used to, in the ashram also, very little money. We never had much money. But the kind of impact that we were able to do, he was able to make because the way he lived, because whatever he did, he lived it. There was no discrepancy between what he said and what he did. So as long as there is no difference between Kathni and Karni of a leader, people respect him. So I guess all these qualities plus he was very particular about accounts. That is one thing, that no money should be wasted, no public money should be wasted, all public money should be accounted for, and everybody who wants to see the accounts must be uh, allowed to see, and it should be open for public. All these are norms which are not being followed right now, but he followed it. So you see this, all these things make people have a lot of respect towards the leader. They look forward to, and my father till the end was a person who would, if anybody would come with a dream, he would immediately help him. He would not find out, or he was never judgmental. And immediately he would give him an opportunity to pursue his dreams, even if it is okay, even if you fail, or even if you become, even if you are wrong in your thing, make sure that your means are okay. So the purity of means that Gandhiji had spoken about was very important for Radhakrishna ji. And I think by being a student of Gandhi to practitioner of Gandhi, that entire change happened gradually, and we see that this entire thing of rising above his sorrows and happiness, of sharing others' griefs and happiness, all these qualities which are very essentially described in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That is the Sthita Prajna Lakshana, Sthita Prajna Lakshanani. Every evening, those 18 verses used to be recited in the ashram prayers. And that impacted a lot, because once people understand how one has to behave, how does a person of steadfast wisdom, of a person who is a samadhista person, how does he act, how does he sit, how does he walk, then the answer for our Indian management is right there in the Bhagavad Gita. Art of living is in the Bhagavad Gita. So he just merely lived according to it. And what more there is to say about it, I think. Thank you so much.
Any other question?
Can I ask?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, why should you ask?
I have to because I have read your book. Now, Radha Krishna ji and Gandhi ji, what was the kind of interaction? What all happened? What is his connection with Gandhi ji? Instances that I could not.
No, because directly he never came face to face with Gandhiji.
You know, okay.
No, he never came. This was only through Siddhanali Krishna Sharma's
Krishna Sharma.
way he connected him with Gandhiji, plus his own interest in the Gandhian. My grandfather was a Gandhian, and so he used to always spin his own.
No, but in his days in
Sevagram.
Sevagram,
47 Gandhi had already left Sevagram. That was the problem, because
and he was in jail. Or
he was going. He was on 15th of August 1947. Gandhi was not in Delhi. He was in Kolkata. So he was already on the move. He left Sevagram Ashram in 1946 when Jinnah Sahib called him. for a dialogue. And of course, at that time there was so much violence. Mr. I forgot his name, Tate. He had come with a long knife to kill him. They didn't want Gandhiji to be alive. So, of course, Gandhiji walked very bravely in front of them. He said, I'll walk to Vardhashram. If you want to do something, if God wants me to live and work, then I'll be alive. So that crisscross happened and he never got an opportunity to directly be talking to him, but Mama and Tata and all those people were there. So this is an influence which was from the background. It was guiding him, the vision. So it's an amazing journey because a person who could visualize what his mentor wanted, especially in terms of Sarvodaya and Satyagraha, and to take it forward in the context of that time and make sure that things move in that direction. And every year he would call a conference in Sevagram and a report to Gandhi was prepared. So that was one of the very great things that he was doing to make everybody reflect again as to where, if at all they were going wrong, where was the correction that it needed to take them to the right path.
Any other questions?
हाँ बताएं. हाँ.
तो टेक्स्ट बुक के पीछे जो होता है करके देखिए. तो जब हम पढ़ा रहे थे गवर्नमेंट स्कूल के अंदर तो प्रिंसिपल होती वो कहते थे अगर करके देखने लग गए ना तो हो चुका काम. इस चीज को स्किप करके आप आगे बढ़ो कि अंकुरण हम करके कैसे दिखाएंगे या सूर्य ग्रहण या चंद्र ग्रहण. तो वो कहते थे इसको आप छोड़ दो और अपना तो क्या प्रैक्टिकली इम्प्लीमेंट करना पॉसिबल है महात्मा गांधी के विजन को या किसी ने ऐसा करिकुलम बनाया या ऐसा करिकुलम आज ऐसे करिकुलम पर पढ़ाया जा रहा है हमारे दिल्ली के स्कूलों में. ये जानना चाहते हैं.
तो आप तो पढ़ाती हैं, आपने ही अपना बता दिया कि पढ़ाया नहीं जा रहा है, तभी तो एजुकेशन का हाल ये हो गया है. क्योंकि हमारे लिए तो हम जब पढ़ रहे थे हर चीज तो हमको करके ही देख के फिर हमें सीखना होता था. फर्स्ट डू इट एंड देन लर्न अबाउट इट. तो उल्टा था. तो आज एकदम शीर्षासन कर लिया है तो फिर ऐसा तो होगा ही कि कहीं ना कहीं मिसमैच बिल्कुल हो गया है. अगर करना है तो फिर गांधी जी के सिद्धांतों के बारे में हमें सोचना पड़ेगा और उसी लाइन में जाना पड़ेगा. आप टीचर हैं. ये इनोवेशन है, जर्मिनेशन ऑफ प्लांट. हमारे मिसफॉर्चून है, हमारे बच्चों के भविष्य को हमने बर्बाद किया. That's all I can say.
You have a question? You have a question, yeah.
Sir.
I've been in private media for 13 years. I've seen news, stars, my understanding of the meetings and all is this: the value system of Gandhi, which I come to here when I come on these lectures of my mom. And all those things which national media should put up some days on कुछ बहाने से 2 अक्टूबर को ही से, they don't do it in a way it should be done, and I don't find a way they will do it. Is public broadcaster doing anything about it so that value system is spread in the society?
Yeah. First of all, I must tell you that both Doordarshan and All India Radio were departments of the government of India until Prasar Bharati, the autonomous corporation, was established. Prasar Bharati came into being in 1997, and when Parliament made the Prasar Bharati Act, the bill passed, it begins with the following statements and following mandate given to Prasar Bharati. The first mandate, to uphold and promote democratic values. First. Second, all diverse cultures, art forms, etc., languages. Okay. As per the last census, we speak 121 languages and 270 dialects. In Prasar Bharati, I think our programming is in about 160 languages, all put together. So this is the mandate given by Parliament. Apart from that, Shastriya Sangeet, Shastriya Nritya, specifically mentioned by Parliament that you got to take care. That is, this is your baby. So we have DD Bharati, which is a 24-hour channel devoted wholly to the arts, the cultural, classical arts of India, and so on and so forth. There is some other responsibilities. Women, children, the underprivileged, specific responsibility. It begins with that and then goes on to dealing with the office of chairman, CEO, this, that, and the other. But this is the preamble, that this is what you guys must do. So what I want to tell you is that in these last 22 years, that is what Prasar Bharati has been doing. You know, many people would say, when you look at colors or Star Plus or this, that, all that chamak that is there, and all those reality shows and all, and then you watch Doordarshan and you say this is rather boring and etc. I will not quarrel with that. There are many things we need to do in order to step up our own, the look and feel of our channels and so many other things. But I will say, for a moment, just reflect. In fact, people of India, every person sitting here is a stakeholder in Prasar Bharati. It is a public corporation. I want the people to realize what this corporation does, what All India Radio and Doordarshan does. For a moment, many a time, when you get angry with Doordarshan or AR or whatever, you would say, why the hell we don't close this, These guys are so incompetent or this, that and the other. Could say. Then I want such people to just reflect over this. Just think for a moment that this doesn't exist. You think these private fellows will take care of your Bharatanatyam, Odissi and Carnatic music, Hindustani music? Look at the grading of All India Radio, music grades. They're so strict. Anyone having A grade, A plus grade, is the top artist in the world. Globally, it's Satna. That's the gold standard. Same thing with Doordarshan in regard to the Shastriya Nritya. There we have judges, they will come, they got to see the performances. Many a time, most of them get rejected and so on and so forth. So, this is a very important contribution. Secondly, today I will say, if you want news, come to DD News. If you want noise, you have 200 options. You can go where you want. But come to DD News now. There was a time when this was a monopoly of government. It was run by government until Prasar Bharati came into being. And here in this book we are talking about the emergency when All India Radio and Doordarshan were virtually, dictated day in, day out by government. That is not the case today. You can go back home today and switch on DD News, watch our 9 o'clock show, and you will see a wholesome, there is completeness to news. You will have what the Prime Minister said today, you will have stories from Kashmir, you will have what the others are saying, what Chidambaram's remark is about the budget or whatever, inflation. You will have everything. So, to that extent, this is how the public broadcaster, this is the responsibility given to the public broadcaster. In fact, Polio Mukta Bharat. How did we become Polio Mukta Bharat? All India Radio, Doordarshan, every hour they used to hammer that message across. And a lot of programming we used to do. Take the child to the primary health center Sunday morning 9 o'clock. That is how we became Polio Mukta. When this government launched Jan Dhan Yojana, can you imagine 330 million new bank accounts are opened in about 8-10 months. That's the population of America, USA. Our bankmen did that. And you had all the radio Doordarshan messaging constantly. Do you have a bank account tomorrow? It's going to be direct transfer of subsidies. If you don't have a bank account, it's not going to be possible. You don't have to put in a single rupee. 0 rupee bank account can be opened now. Go to your branch. And the bankmen would come to villages and ask them, 330 million. The same thing is happening now in regard to toilets. Till 3, 4, 5 years ago, 70% of households do not have toilets. What does it do to the health of women, to the dignity of women, to the safety of women, apart from others in the family? I met Mata Amritanandamayi ji about 1.5 years ago. I had a 20-minute conversation with her. 20 minutes it was about sanitation and toilets. No mention of God, no mention of any religious text or any hymn or any temple or anything. 20 minutes it was on sanitation. And she told me that she had donated 100 crores for building of toilets along the Ganga. And she said she grew up in a family, in a home where there was no toilet. And she would say many days it was horrible. And what she said, I am conveying, she said sometimes it's more painful than childbirth. Okay. So these are all things now I can tell you in about 2-3 years, 70%, 80% Indian households will have toilets. I have no doubt about it. And we as the public broadcaster, we have a very important role to play in that, and we are doing that. Now, I'm giving you this lengthy thing because when you look at the private broadcaster, this is what Parliament has told us, this is what I have to do. Does he have any responsibility? We don't know. So, I hope this answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Surya Prakash ji. You have a question? This will be the last question. Please ask your question.
Good evening, ma'am, Dr. Shobhana. If I retrospect and go back to school, I still remember we had written an essay on Mahatma Gandhi, that he was shot on 30th January 1948 by Nathuram Godse. But thereafter there have been rumors that he was shot by someone else. Nathuram Godse only had his fingers on the trigger. Somebody else shot him. So I would like to know more from you. And this was something like we get to see in films, that you've been shot, but actually shooter is close to the actual shooter.
Sir, I don't know because I wasn't there at that time. So.
As for the history, Nathuram Godse name of
So whatever you know, I know only that much. I only know that much, sir.
Actually,
Whatever you know. We
And
have
number
no.
two, Mahatma Gandhi was known as Father of the Nation. Do we have documentary evidence who had given him the title Father of the Nation? I would like to know that.
Do you have any document?
There is no documentary
Yes.
evidence about it.
So, yeah.
I cannot answer that question, but possibly if you have information.
Well, what information we have is, for the first time, Subhash Chandra Bose ji had called him as the father of the nation. In Bangla Bhasha, he had said, Tini Amar Deshor Janok. So, that's what he had said to his friend who was coming from Vienna. And then he said, if you are in any kind of difficulty in India, please go to Mahatma Gandhi. He is our father of the nation. That's all I know, sir. Thank you so much. And I again thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. And please,
Thank you. Let's all give Shobhana ji a good hand for. I'd like to thank Tibet House also for organizing this. And
Okay.
Please be seated for a minute. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, sir, as well. And I'm sure our audience have gathered lots of hidden history about Radhakrishna's hard work towards building the Gandhi's vision in India. And now I would like to request our director, Keshala, to kindly present a katha and souvenir to our respected guests.
Thank you so much. Bless me so that I can do much more.
Sure.
So we are hiding.
Yes.
You want to take a photo? Thank you, Keshav. And now I'll go away from here.
So much.
Keshala, thanks once again.
Thank you so
And
much.
I really feel blessed